NWA Powerrr recap. I am your host, Chad Portal. I'm adjusting the screen. Do not be alarmed. Joining me as always is the glorious one himself, Marcus Green. Marcus has putting the cap on the video stream, the Wrestling Underground banner. So now we're good. Welcome to another show, my friend.
Yes, this should be good. We had a really good jam-packed one for Underground, so we'll try to bring that same energy.
I was trying to segment off the Underground podcast to YouTube, but it's like, yeah, it's like spinning the wheel. It's spinning the wheel like it's not processing. I'm like, I'm not fucking waiting for this shit. So I just ported the whole goddamn thing over. You're welcome, YouTube. You're welcome. 2 hours of us yammering. You're welcome. But he's Marcus. I'm Chad. This is our return to form. We were off last week because I was trying to readjust my sleep schedule. Still trying to readjust, but I'm better. Much better. So essentially, we open up this week with, if I remember correctly, obviously we do the recap from last week, highlights, blah, blah, blah. We do the intros. But then we get to the Rock and Roll Express, and basically they just say, hey, we're the blue-collar guys, and we go to work every day and get our money, and we're not millionaires. And I'm just like, okay, new show, different day. Same show, different day. One of those is right. Marcus, you've been very much a fan of watching these cats because these aren't guys that you were all that familiar with because they haven't been in the spotlight for a lot of years. Do you still feel like they have a certain uniqueness now, or do you feel like maybe they're starting to hit some reoccurring trends?
I mean, I think kind of ebbs and flows from week to week. I think they do real good when they have somebody to play off of, kind of like what we getting with Magnus, Nick Aldis and his team. But I mean, they kind of they hit their stride. They know what they're good at. We're not expecting no 5-star classics. They stick to what they know, and what works for them. And for me, they kind of just they hit that. They've not like over exceeded anything or like going under the ball too much. They kind of in the middle for me in terms of just kind of staying consistent. But yeah, I still like seeing them because they bring that. They just bring a little bit of pop and flavor. If nothing else, Ricky Morton definitely pops. Against somebody like a Nick Aldis. So, they still keep it interesting for me. Not maybe obviously not for everybody else because they like why do they still why are they still hurting all these old goats. But I dig it. So
These old goats can still do goat things. Don't know what goats do. We then got the bracket for the tournament. If I remember correctly, it's going to be Tim Storm versus one of the open card slots, I think is what they called them. No, he's going to face one of the Dawsons. So Tim Storm is facing the winner of the Dawson versus Dawson Royal Rumble later in the show. And then Ricky Starks will take on the open slot. Now, the open slot was announced as a wrestler from outside of the NWA who wins their way into the tournament. So I would imagine these are going to be Ring of Honor wrestlers, considering news that we'll touch on in a little bit. On the other side of the bracket, we had Zicky Dice also getting another open bracket. And then we had the question mark getting the winner of Thom Latimer and Trevor Murdoch on next week's episode. So we're almost down to the Elite Eight. So far, are the guys you want to win winning? Because I don't know how you feel about Zicky Dice because he's still kind of new. I thought it was Ziggy, but it's spelling it Zicky. I don't know if I like Zicky. I like Ziggy. Ziggy's fun. I like the double.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I mean, Ziggy, we talked about it, not necessarily my flavor, but he is this brand is about promos and characters, and he is a character. He stands out certainly. Can't miss that guy in the crowd. But I've primarily been pulling for boy Ricky Stark, and it's kind of those two sticking around and maybe potentially meeting for the finals. Who knows how this is gonna go? But as long as those two have been keeping up. I'm pretty fine with everything so far.
I'm going with Tim Storm myself. I think that would be a wonderful story. We'll see what happens, though. Tim Storm, Trevor Murdoch. Book it. Just not Thom. Just not Thom. We got a promo between Zicky and Ricky Starks. And it's pretty much that whole, I'm beat you, no, I'm beat you, no, I'm be champion, no, I'm be champion. Solid stuff.
Yeah. I called him a fake ass guy for years.
Welcome to Diners, Dive-Ins, and Suicide Dives.
There it is.
That should be his gimmick, man. That would work so well. It was a solid little bit. You know, these are two of their... I don't know how old Zicky Dice is, so when I say young prospects, I'm using that more as a young for the audience eyes. But these are two of their younger prospects, and Starks has all the charisma in the world. He's got hair, he's got a 5-head, he's got a jaw that can cut granite. Like, he's pretty much everything you'd want in a young prospect. You just got to hope that his charisma ends up matching a character at some point. Because I would say that his character right now is a little bit lacking in terms of pizzazz. Not something he can't improve on. This isn't like, oh, he'll never be big. But, like, if you look at Ricky Starks and you look at Zicky Dice, one of them is clearly a star in looks. And the other one has potential. Now, the old adage in sports is potential is good enough to get you fired. So I'm hoping Starks can up the ante and go past just the traditional early 1980s random face heel aesthetic.
It sounds like the first creed in the New England Patriots handbook.
Potential will get you fired. Second creed in the New England Patriots handbook: Belichick is God. Third creed: see second creed. There are no more creeds. So we get Zane versus Devin, or Dane versus Evan, or Fabian versus Cortez. I don't know who the fuck these two dudes are. It's hairy and hairless. That's what I refer to them as. Hairy and hairless. And if I remember correctly, Harry beat hairless with a straight right to the face. That's gotta hurt. Marcus, what do you think of the Dawson brothers, cousins-in-laws, doing the battle?
Yeah, it was just something to get through. This was kind of like, I didn't see this. I mean, I guess I should have saw it coming because, put them both in there in the first place, and it's not like, at that point, it's no longer a team. But I didn't care, Obviously, one of them had to win, but at the end of the day, it's like, I'm literally out there. I never have a horse in the race whenever they're on screen, so.
Yeah, essentially. Most of the times the wrestling teams, I don't really care because they're not wrestling any teams I care about. And now they wrestle themselves. It's like, let's see. Next up we had, it was a recap of the James Storm national title picture. He's got Nick Aldis at, no, he doesn't have Nick Aldis at Hard Times. I have no idea what this promo is about. No lie.
I guess it was just a refresher because we didn't get him on these shows.
Oh, okay. So we then got... What the hell is this? I thought this was two different segments. We got a promo featuring Nick Aldis beating up... Oh, okay. It's a preview. Never mind. We'll get to that later. So we got this really interesting little Anderson Boom Boom segment. Boom Boom Cabana, Colt Cabana. And Colt, I liked the way Colt went about talking about his quote-unquote issues with Anderson. Like, we're not in the right headspace. We're not on the same page. We're just not gelling. Kind of very sports in how he was going about this. It wasn't like not derogatory. It wasn't cliche pro wrestling ideologies. It's just like, we're not on the same page. And it was hinting at the dysfunction between the two, which, granted, I didn't think was ever going to not happen. Like, kind of like me in dating. I'm going to date a crazy chick. And at some point, that crazy chick's going to do something crazy. and I'm not going to be surprised because I know who I am and I know what I attract. So with this tag team, I knew that they were going to eventually hit the skids because Anderson's kind of better as a heel, and Colt's just a natural, lovable goof. So that was kind of like what this is starting to allude to, and I think Anderson said something to the effect of, what do I have to be mad about or something like that. So they're definitely dropping some hints about it. Marcus, what do you think about the quote-unquote issues between the tag team of Cabana Anderson? Or Cabana Anderson. Anna Cabana! Yeah!
Mr. Boom Boom! Mr. Boom Boom! Yeah, they could really do something with that, but they're about to kill it, so...
Right? We just came up with the greatest
it.
intro name ever, and now they're about to break up. Ah!
Yeah, right off a cliff. But yeah, I mean, like you said, I think Anderson it would be in a far better mood, had he conquered Drake and had he, been in position to maybe go after someone. Go obviously, there's a tag team goal, but a lot of guys, you know, specifically the way Aldis has been running his mouth, kind of just want to go after him.
Mm-hmm.
Even national and the TV title up for grabs, because he just puts such a target on his back with his mouth that it's kind of hard to not have a guy on your radar. But yeah, I mean Anderson is kind of more. We know this guy. He pops off at the mouth. He's aggressive in a lot of ways. He's similar to Drake in some regards. And like you said, Cabana just that kind of happy-go-lucky guy who can turn it on when he needs to, but he would prefer to not come with that energy off bat. So yeah, something was bound to happen, specifically when you got Anderson, who's been getting the short end of the stick in certain instances, because he didn't come there to play second fiddle to nobody either. So
I just love that we came up with a goddamn tag team name and a musical interlude to introduce them on the eve of their destruction. Only us. Only fucking us. So then we get Ashley Vox versus Melina. Now, did you notice that they were mispronouncing Melina's name?
no, what were they calling her?
Marlena.
Oh wow.
Like the announcer called her Marlene, Stu Bennett called her Marlene, and I forget Joe Gallows. I forget the play-by-play guy. He ran up to her going, Melina. Kind of like his way of telling everyone, you fucked up so hard, you dumbasses. I loved it. It was great. So Melina's been, I don't want to say inactive, but she's been semi-retired for the last few years, or at least semi-inactive, if you will. Definitely not keeping a full schedule anymore. So I was kind of wondering how would she look in a singles match in the NWA. And she looks to be in pretty good shape. She is 40. I'm not expecting her to have that 25-year-old ab body that she used to have. But she looks fantastic, still moves really well. And I thought she looked pretty good. My only complaint, again, goes to the same point that I've been making every time there's a women's match. Why you got to do Ashley Vox so dirty like that? I think actually Ashley Vox is the only woman in NWA to have a loss besides Marty Bell. Everyone else is undefeated except for Bell and Vox. I feel so bad for those.
Yeah,
two.
she's NWA's Alicia Edwards.
Yeah, but at least Alicia is like that whole stint she had with the throwback night with Impact gave her such a good idea for a gimmick, and I really hope they go with that. Madison Rain should go with that as a gimmick too. The 80s workout Supreme Queen thing, like that was fantastic. I'm just saying, like sometimes good ideas are good ideas, regardless of what era they're in. So post match, after Melina gets the win, she calls out Allison Kay, and this is where she's like, "I'm challenging you. All these people are witnesses." I'm just like, wait, this was filmed 5 weeks ago. How is this segment so topical? So she's like, we got witnesses next week, you and me. I think they said for the belt. And they're like, yeah, you're on. Let's not even wait. And Melina's like, no, good things come to those who waits. And I'm like, well, I'm still waiting for you, Melina. So, Thoughts on this segment, and then we're going to parlay and pivot for a second.
It's interesting because it's I mean it kind of when you look at it, it's kind of like obviously it was cool to see Melina in more action than she's been in. Again, the Oxyvox can't have good things. Um, but she also kind of turned up the aggressive factor, so she was kind of more in Allison's face than usual, which is like she really didn't need to, because every time Allison comes out, she's ready to fight. I thought she was gonna kick her shoes off again, because as we're about to get into, she has no problem starting something, right? Or jumping in when somebody else starts something. So, yeah, it was fine. I hope we get the match that Melina's threatening for them to have, because I prefer for them to have a bit of a barn burner, kind of like how Drake and Anderson had after all this potential buildup they've been doing. So, yeah, it was fine. It was cool, but I mean, I wish people would stop calling Allison out and not being ready to fight, because it kind of gets predictably boring at that point.
Yeah, shake things up is always a good idea. So real quickly, the Tessaversy, as we're taking to calling it, kind of invoked a few new wrinkles since Sunday. One of which was a rumor that broke out that Tessa and Rosa Negra, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, apparently it had a face-to-face conversation back in November, Marcus. Now, the source of this is obviously someone in Tessa's camp, so I don't know how valid or legitimate it is, but it's worth noting because, like we said Sunday night, there was too much non-information in the initial accusations for this to just be a simple she said something racist kind of thing. There's obviously more to the story, so we're going to look in as deep as we can get. So this is the first coating that we found as we break the bedrock, the first layer, if you will. So essentially, they were both at WrestleCade. I think I'm trying to remember if it's WrestleCade or WrestleCon, because there's two of them. They're different somehow. They were at a wrestling convention in November. Whichever one it was is irrelevant. And apparently Tessa and La Negra, or La Rosa Negra, had a conversation backstage where each apologized to each other, indicating that this was not a one-sided Tessa went full racist on La Rosa's face, as was seemingly indicated. So that was the initial rumor that we got Monday. Earlier today, or I think late last night, I forget when I posted it, Tommy Dreamer was on Busted Open Radio talking about the Tessa controversy, or the Tessaversy, and said that he doesn't believe that Tessa's racist, and also said that the incident that Tessa was involved with was a full-blown fight in Japan. This wasn't some type of she slapped and spit in La Rosa's face. This was a fight that the two were in. And now this is leading to a lot of people wondering, well, what started this? How did this escalate? What role did La Rosa play in this? And who was there to witness it? Because one of the things that we brought up on Sunday was, while, yes, a lot of people know of the incident, who was there to see it? We don't know. A lot of people are just talking from secondhand accounts of what they were told. I don't know who was on that tour. I think Rebel was the only one to confirm she was there. So now this has led into a lot more conversations. And now Allison Kate's like, well, no, I totally asked her if I could post this. And then she sent a tweet or sent a screenshot of her sending a screen cap to La Rosa saying, can I post this? It looked like she had already posted it, but it could have been just her editing it in the app, screen capped it, and sent it to her. But it was very clear that Allison Kay had full intentions on posting something before she ever reached out to La Rosa. So this whole situation now is getting a lot murkier. La Rosa, who was seemingly seen as this very, very kind, very nice person, is now being thrust into a spotlight of what role was she involved with in this conversation, in this physical altercation in Japan. What did she say in this altercation? Because this is starting to become a situation where we have to wonder if she was throwing out racial slurs as well. We don't know. We thought she was this perfect little angel, and now all of a sudden she's throwing bows in Japan. What did she do? What did Tessa do? There's a lot of conversations about this now. Allison Kay is clearly petty. There's no doubt about that in my mind. She tanked her entire image. So kudos for that, Allison. Tessa's still looking pretty bad because she's continuing to evade and deny, which, listen, you can fuck up in this world. Maybe not easily. People are going to drag you, and I feel that's not the right thing to do. But I still feel like if you do something wrong, you gotta own it. You gotta apologize. You gotta be a man. You gotta be a woman. You gotta own your shit. Because that's the only way you can ever really show people that you're willing to be different than what you were. So right now, all three women, La Rosa, Tessa, and Allison Kay, look like trash. And that's not good. And the problem is there's still a lot we don't know. And that's going to continue to further compound on itself, building forward and moving on. So all I know, Marcus, is this is a shit show, and it's not a show that's going to be ending anytime soon. It's been picked up for a second season.
That's wow. That's really the best way to sum it up. Yeah, it is an absolute crap show. Yeah, I mean, look, yeah, for the most part, all weekend, Tessa got the brunt of it because she, that tweet set her up. It's some real irony in the fact that, she called for women to have each other's back, and they kind of blew back on her because they, definitely had each other's back, but it was just all against her. But the thing about everything that went down is it definitely painted the perspective on her end of things. But it was from obviously people who was experiencing it and not from her. So not only did she not really address it outright, she, definitely didn't, address the racial component, which you would think if it didn't absolutely happen. And I don't know if we outright said this when we did talk about on Wrestle Underground. Something is damning today as being called a racist. You would think that would be the first thing, if nothing else, that you would vehemently deny.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, bring up nothing else, like, look, I ain't no saint, but I damn sure ain't no racist.
Mm-hmm.
And that never really got said. The things that she did said, kind of skirted around stuff instead of saying them outright, and that's fine. That's on her. That's her her choice, her words. So but yeah, uh, and like I said, I brought this up, like she's talked about before, that she's also been on the end from her perspective of bullying from other people.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, I don't know if she's just been hardened at a certain point to kind of be preemptive about how she deals with people, catching energy or whatnot, or she's just got a certain personality that just rubs people the wrong way and things go on from there. That being said, it does not give her the carte blanche to go around throwing out racial slurs and whatnot, or bullying people in general for the F of it. So, um, like you said, a lot of this is on her. She's going to have to continue to deal with it, like you said, because she's not going to be able to escape it in interviews and whatnot from here on out. Other people are going to be pushed to address it because they work with her. And I'm sure, as these things do, more stuff is going to continue to come out because more people are going to feel the need to do so, out of, just sheer support for these other women or just because they in their petty bags. So, but like, they're petty bags. So like you said, is getting a second season. Uh, uh, and I'm guessing this is not episodic. This is very much the Netflix full all release at once type deal. So you just got to keep covering as it goes.
Tommy Dreamer actually did touch on her attitude. He said that when he first met her, he had no idea who she was. He had just heard about her. And Tessa
Yeah.
approached him. And I can only imagine, from what I have heard about Tessa, both from interviews and just from talking with people, she's very confrontational, but maybe not necessarily intentionally so. And when she walked up to Dreamer, she said flat out, and this is Dreamer's own words, "I heard you don't like me." And Dreamer just responded, "I don't know you. I've never met you before, but I'm willing to get to know you." And he said that she essentially said, "Fair enough." So I have a feeling that she's very reactionary. And all right, so for those of you who don't know, I have a lot of experience in human behavior and psychology and just all kinds of nonsense like that. For a long time, I was going to be an FBI profiler, and I was like, yes, let's go to school for this shit. So I have some pretty decent understanding with how humans react and why people behave the way they do. For me, Tessa very much seems like someone who is, I don't want to say overly emotional, but leads with her emotions. And because she's been, in her own words, the center of so much conflict geared towards her because of who she is, I feel she feels the needs to lash out. It's like when you're a wounded puppy. Whenever someone reaches to pet you, the first thing you do is nip at their hand because you've been abused so much. And I feel that's Tessa, and I feel like that's not an excuse by any means, but it would shed some light on the demeanor and headspace that she's in when she's in these confrontations. I feel she is a bit immature because mature people don't react like that. But I also feel like she might feel threatened a lot more than she lets on. She has this big bravado that she's the best in the world and no one can touch her, but I feel like she's, not the most fortified mentally as she claimed at the end of Hard to Justice. What the fuck? Hard to Kill. So I think what we're seeing here is a young woman who has a lot of emotional baggage she can't get past, with a lot of abusive and destructive situations forced upon her within the industry by people she's supposed to, rely on and trust, and she reacts in a way that is to the nth degree, going to 11 when a situation may only need a 4 or a 5 to react to. And I feel like that's where a lot of these situations are coming from, is she's overreacting because of the things that's been done to her.
Yeah, and you really just detailed, what I said about being basically being a preemptive striker.
Mm-hmm.
Because of her experiences, as you were talking, very much the first thing I did was like, oh, she's Cobra Kai,
And she needs to be Koala Kai.
Exactly, because she's very talented, but obviously we see her Miss Talent in the ring, but behind the scenes she may very well come off like Hawk to people,
Mm-hmm.
right? And she has yet to get basically she got the spin kick into the glass over the weekend, basically. Um, but yeah, I didn't because I didn't even hear that Tommy Dreamer interview, but that's very telling, and maybe a lot of, I guess, the bravado she came off with him also, and I'm just spitballing here, but because he may have been somebody she respected and she thought that way. Like imagine us getting that story from Gail Kim.
Yeah.
I think that might paint even more stern picture because we know how she feels about Gail Kim. But yeah, I mean, I think that says a lot. She does get off this bravado, but beneath that, she might be this this soft, nice girl that kind of wants a lot of people to like her, and because of who she is, she got rubbed the wrong way a lot. In a wrong manner, and then she may have ended up turning out to be grew into some of what she had to deal with, which is sad, but sometimes that's how it happens, and we kind of seeing her deal with this emotional immaturity, if you will, as we go. But hopefully, like you said, she, you talked about she rolled out of it, but she does need to address this stuff outright, because like you said, it's only going to get worse from here. Specifically, if she's going to be the torchbearer for this company right now.
I don't want to paint this as a female-specific issue, but one of the things I've noticed that women do differently than men, women will intentionally say things that may not be true or may be very painful to say just to get a reaction or just to hurt you. I would not be surprised at all if Tessa said something derogatory towards La Rosa with that intention in mind. Not so much because she's a racist, but because she's intentionally trying to provoke a reaction from her. That's not any better. It's, it's maybe like a half a degree better than being a racist. But I think that's more than likely what she did, because I've seen that. I've experienced that. And it's a very real thing for someone who's got a lot of trauma and turmoil to deal with to do. And this is a woman who talks about how she was kicked out of her home when she was a teenager. You know, to say that Tessa Blanchard doesn't have any psychological issues to deal with would be an out-and-out lie, in my opinion. I think Tessa's got a lot of baggage she's trying to work her way through, and I don't think she's doing it. You know, because the Ricochet thing at the Performance Center, her attitude, the confrontation, there's a lot there that makes me feel like there's something deeper seated emotionally. I don't feel she's a racist. You know, racists don't really hide their actions. We know who is kind of a racist and who's kind of not. It's not that hard to gauge. But with Tessa, I feel like a lot of this is psychological, not hate. But only one thing will ever define what this truly is, and that's time and more individuals speaking out on both sides. The defenders and the detractors both need to keep talking, because the truth is in the middle. And that's the truth. Like we'll know who Tessa is with the more and more ways and more things that are brought up about her.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you said, I think the onus comes on her and the people that can, you know, speak from, you know, both perspectives, specifically from a professional standpoint, because like the fandom minute struck, right? And that only murkies the waters, because then everybody just wants to back off. Like the people who was trying to, I guess, come at Gail Kim for who's been her mentor and you know, would know her on a certain level by now, kind of coming at Gail Kim for being supportive of her. It's like you can't really tell somebody, you know, specifically you don't know either party, and definitely don't know the depth of their relationship, what to do based off how you feeling at the time, because you just want to instantly paint this person as a racist off information that somebody else that you don't know is telling you went down. Mm-hmm. Like, you so far removed from the situation at that point, but you want to feel like I'm a person that's in the right. She said what? Racist. Cancel. So it's if people can kind of tune those things out. Like, something happened today. I don't know if you saw it with Paige.
I saw that Triple H said something like Paige might have a bunch of kids she doesn't know anything about, and she got really offended by that. And I'm like, how is that something to be offended about? That is so, just so, what's the word I'm thinking of? It's so silly that a woman wouldn't know she had kids. Like, how do you take that seriously?
It's very, you know, because there are so many worse things that he could have said from a very, you know, just for being a crass, like just taking a quick crass a-hole moment. But then, you know, because I'm, you know, made an active choice to know not to pick sides on any of this type of stuff, because it's just, it doesn't bode well. Mm-mm. And then, you know, you search Twitter and you see a tweet where she tweeted, this was last year. I quote, "I love getting texts from Zelina Vega. We are talking about you, Twitter, and how you can't take a damn joke. 3 cry face emojis."
Oh God, Paige is overplayed.
It's like, when stuff like this comes up, like, now you just want to play this, like, this quick victim card or whatever. It's like, do you know where he could have went with the information that everybody now has? And like, that was just an offshoot quick joke, and she's entitled to feel how she feels, but she has gotten caught a lot of times in situations where it's like, yeah, but you said this here, foot and mouth, shut up.
And the thing Paige defenders need to realize is her boyfriend is pretty deplorable in the way he behaves. He's not a felon, but you wouldn't want to bring him home to a family. Let's just say that. So like this whole thing with Paige is just silly. Paige is in another unhealthy relationship apparently, and maybe she's the unhealthy one. I don't know, because if she keeps getting into bed with these jagoffs, and then it's all on her, honestly. And if a comment like Triple H saying, hey, could you imagine Paige being pregnant multiple times in her life and not even being aware of it, and then having kids and not even know it? That's a joke. Like, how does that happen? Paige would obviously know she's pregnant. She would obviously know when she has a baby. You know, you don't just burp one out and then you're like, oh, what's that? And you keep going. It's so silly. It's so over the top.
Like she blowing this out the wall. Like somebody wrote, like, imagine had he said she's probably got multiple imagine had, like he said, like alluded that she's been impregnated multiple times or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't.
No.
Like, it was like it's an offshoot joke. No dudes were impregnated. Like, it's just like, I get it. She's very sensitive about that situation. She's got every right to be. But we've seen her in so many instances with the foot and mouth scenario on Twitter, and it's like, you are this goth chick who's didn't she like put her fingers up in Natty's mouth during the match or something?
Yeah,
like
something like that.
What it is, and you've had, this personality that really want to say stuff like that and kind of get away with it because that's your personality, but you work for a company where it's not always conducive, specifically when you're on screen. So when it happens to you, hey, take the joke and let it go. But her bringing that up only puts people's minds back on, hey, there's something over here that I could watch for maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
Hey, that's longer than you'd watch Raw. I'll say this. If Triple H had said we don't have, or something to the effect like, we had to stop letting Paige and Xavier Woods tour together for obvious reasons, all right. You can be mad about that. But he didn't. He didn't. So Paige needs to, get the fuck over it. She literally let people film her having sex. She's used to being the butt of jokes. She did the whole, hey, it's me, Paige face. Remember that? Remember that meme that still is stuck in my head? That clown face that she thought was a good idea? She's been a part of a lot of embarrassment and a lot of embarrassing things. You either get thicker skin or you get trounced by it. And it looked like she was getting thicker skin. This comment shouldn't have made her upset. She should have laughed. Because it's absurd. And the absurdity is what's funny.
What's even worse is, of all the stuff she said over the years, this sounds like a joke she would have made about herself.
Right? Jesus. So, we move from one noteworthy news moment to another. Oh, God, I just jumped to the perfect Caprice Coleman moment. I gotta screen cap this for you.
Nice suits, by the way.
Right? Like, that's a stellar fucking suit. Just look at that. Just look at him. He's so happy. Hang on, I'm sending it to you. This is perfect. Let's see. Nope. Let's go there. There we go. Nope. Wrong one. Here. Nope. Not that one. Not that one. There it is. There we go. Caprice Coleman is number one in facial reactions in pro wrestling. Maybe number two. I would have to sit and think about it. But he's up there. I just jumped to that shot, man. So we mentioned on Sunday that one of the best things for the NWA to do is to find a way to partner with Ring of Honor. The synergy, the promotional camaraderie, the ability to tour with one another and use one another to help promote each other is just good business. And then all of a sudden, Monday morning, I read that, the NWA and Ring of Honor are partnering together. Well, la-di-da. So Nick Aldis shows up at the Ring of Honor tapings from this past whenever it was and interrupts the show, scares poor Caprice Coleman half to death. You leave Caprice alone. And basically calls out the Ring of Honor roster, and of all people, Flip Gordon comes out. And Nick Aldis and Flip Gordon are going to have a match. And I forget when it's going to happen. I think it was rumored to be at Hard Times, I don't know. It might be at a Ring of Honor show for all I know. And Aldis also attacked Marty Scurll, who Marty Scurll is now one of the. He's not the lead booker, but he's on the creative team, and he's basically, from what I've been hearing, he's going to be relied upon to help build relationships with other promotions. One of which is being NWA, and apparently one of the things that Marty Scurll really wanted to do was to reestablish that working relationship, which is why Scurll came out into the fire allegedly. So, or not into the fire, whatever the last show was. I forget what it was called, the pay-per-view. So we'll see what happens with the partnership, but it does seem like NWA and Ring of Honor are going to have a bit of a working relationship, and that could bode well for both because while New Japan will finish out their contractual obligations with Ring of Honor, there doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in the folks at New Japan to continue the partnership much longer because they're going to be launching their own American-based promotion in New Japan USA. So I don't expect this to be a long-term reunion with the Bullet Club and Jay White going to be on a few Ring of Honor shows later on in the year. I think sometime in February or March. I expect the Ring of Honor NWA partnership to be Ring of Honor's new co-promotion, if you will, assuming the NWA is able to last another year because they don't have a lot of financial revenues to exploit at the moment, and the YouTube channel is not as profitable as they would need it to be to do it strictly on that. I'm sure the NWA is looking for actual television outlets to get them on, but until that happens, the future of the NWA is going to be something that I have some lingering questions about just because of how much money they're putting into it and how little they're getting back. But Corgan might be well off enough to spend for years at a time before he makes a profit, so who knows? I don't know. I'm speculating, folks. But Marcus, Caprice Coleman's hilarious reaction aside, because that man is gold, just mwah. What did you feel about Nick Aldis and the Ring of Honor invasion angle?
I think I thought it was cool. I mean, it's not new territory for him. I mean, he that's basically a lot of the back and forth he was doing with Cody. And this is only even more entrenched because of the history between him and Scurll, and obviously just kind of ups the momentum because NWA is picking up a lot of steam, and obviously you would think the end goal would be television, so obviously that would be in the works because you want to get a lot of return on your investment. So I have no doubt that that's part of the goal, and regardless of where ROH is and perception within the industry right now, they do have TV. Mm-hmm. For both of us, it may be found on our station. On our TVs at very random times.
I found it! Sundays 11 to 1 on one of the antenna channels.
Yeah, and for me, it's Saturdays at something time. I don't stay consistent enough. I don't care enough to stay consistent with it, but I can get it. But yeah, so yeah, I think it'd be a nice infusion on both. Have some Ring of Honor talent trickle through NWA. Silas Young would be a perfect fit.
Yeah, he'd be a perfect transitional guy between Ring of Honor and NWA.
Yeah, that'd be a perfect fit, and I'm sure some guys will be good over there. Daniel Storm comes with me. Obviously, Colt has history there.
Ricky Starks,
Colt wandering through there. Storm wandering through there, giving out super kicks and whatnot. Just some good infusion on both sides, Like you said, we don't know how long this is going to be for, but, if both sides can get all they can get, I think it'll be mutually beneficial, and Aldis and Scurll can carry a lot of that weight as characters. And freaking Coleman with his face and freaking Camille's smiling. Like,
I just saw that.
Oh, my God. I'm sick. It felt like he felt something.
Right.
And she was like, thought that was something else, didn't you? It was like, what? And then, yeah.
Fingers don't go there. Fingers don't go there. And even behind him, Riccaboni's like, I wish I could have her fingers somewhere.
Like, oh, no, that's her boyfriend. Run! Oh, man.
Oh, God, that's right. Thom's there.
Right.
He's like a magic guy.
Right. Yeah, that's what he's saying. Well, Caprice is copping a unlawful fill, something he didn't know was there. And Camille's like, "Nah, you see why I don't talk." But
Even better. Even better. Camille's grabbing Caprice's butt. And Thumb's
yeah,
like,
that's
your
what.
butt better not be touching her hand. And Caprice's like, I can't control what she's touching, man.
Or even worse, she's gripping both cheeks one handed. That's why it's like,
Or even better, her hands are on his lower back and he still feels a hand on his butt. It's like, wait, whose hand? He seems so uncertain about life. Someone help Caprice, please.
oh,
He's too precious.
oh man,
He's a real
yeah,
life minister, isn't he?
yeah, I think so.
I love Caprice. He's one of those guys that I root for. I wish was about 10 years younger because he was a late 90s, early 2000s type of wrestler in the high spot era. But now
Yeah,
that we're returning more to personalities over in ring again, I think his style would have been much more useful. And I think with his charisma and personality and just his ability to make any segment he's in relevant, I think again could have been a bigger star. He just landed in the wrong era with the type of style that he wrestled, and I think that's the
yeah,
unfortunate thing.
yeah. And Ring of Honor traded so much water with him.
Having
Like
him,
this,
who was it, Caprice?
yeah,
Caprice Coleman wasn't a bad addition. I think him and Jonathan Gresham would have been a better tag team. Even though I wouldn't say, like, I would call Caprice Coleman's style a pro wrestling style. He's not a grappler. He's not a striker. He's not a big move, flashy, quote unquote spot monkey kind of guy. He's just a pro wrestler. So he kind of can blend with anyone. And I think someone like Jonathan Gresham, who very much isn't a scene stealer, but can make matches longer and more exciting through just his sheer abilities, would have been a much better tag team partner. Because Caprice Coleman is one of those guys. He's a spot guy. He's going to look for the big spots, the big oohs, the big ahs. And when you have to deal with someone like that in a tag team, when you don't have an athletic style yourself, it can really diminish what you bring to the table. It's one of the reasons why when the Hardy Boys became big, everyone was a Jeff Hardy fan, and everyone thought Matt Hardy sucked. Because Jeff Hardy was doing
yeah,
swantons and whispers in the winds and jumping off ladders, but Matt was doing twist of fate and whatever that side angle suplex choke thing he did. And then he'd punch people. Woo! But Matt was really entertaining outside of the
yeah,
ring, unlike Jeff was. And I feel like that was the same issue that Caprice had to deal with when you have someone like Alexander. You can kind of get overlooked if you don't get the opportunities to present yourself in the right light. And Ring of Honor is not a big promotion in putting over promo guys or segments. So, obviously,
yeah.
putting him with Cedric Alexander is going to be a hard pill to swallow for Caprice.
Yeah, and it's funny because looking back on that faction that he came with, made the most of,
Mm-hmm.
with like Kenny King and who else was it? Was
Red
it King
Titus.
and Red? Yeah,
Yeah.
Red Titus.
And
They
Shane
made
Taylor was there for a second.
yeah, they made the most of that. That was one of the more entertaining parts when I was consistently watching. But looking back on that, I'm like, damn, how great of a because he keeps himself like Pope, um, a guy who doesn't look his age, who's in great shape. Um, but looking at his personality and what he could do, the irony that he would have been a great fit in today's NWA product, uh, just like feels like a like you said, like a wrong era type of thing. But at least we still got him on screen. Him and Pope being like, if they could do something where they could link up and do something together, I mean, that'd be probably one of the more entertaining. Yeah,
I was just about to say that to you.
they might lap Drake.
Oh yeah, like that's one of those where like Eli Drake's like, I'm on the mountain, it's a big enough peak for me, and the rest of you are underneath me, looking up. And then all of a sudden you see like this double-headed Hydra Caprice De Niro beast flocking down, and Eli's like, God damn it.
Wing beast. Wait a minute, Daddy.
They did the what was it, the fusion dance. Capaggio de Coleman.
Just an extremely well-spoken, chiseled black man.
With really great hair and super expressive features, who boxes and preaches the gospel. So he's basically a Creed from Rocky.
Exactly.
Moving on. So then we get, speaking of which, we get the Pope. As soon as this loads, he's with Kingston and Homicide. He's putting over that these guys are family, that they're brothers, that unlike certain tag teams in the NWA, they're not just here because, of opportunity or because of circumstances. They're here because they're the best, blah, blah, blah. And he's putting them over hard, and then they book them against the Question Mark and Shooter Aaron Stevens, or as Pope called him, Az.
Yeah.
That was great. At first I thought he was calling him Ass. But it's like, no. Pope's actually he's not like Caprice. He does not swear a lot. And I find that very refreshing. Even though I am a bit of a loose-lipped sumbitch, I do appreciate people who don't swear. I feel like that needs to be a more common thing. So I like guys who can put over one another or put over segments without having to be, dropping, curse words and swear words left and right. I feel there's validity to that. So I appreciate that. So Az and the Karate Guy are taking on Kingston and Homicide. It does not go their way. Mongrovian Spike, I believe, to Homicide, and Aaron Stevens gets the win. But something quizzical happens after the pinfall. As the heels are leaving, Pope looks at his downed tag team that he was apparently going to manage and leaves them. Now, face or heel, Pope's brilliant. So I don't know if this is going to be a start of a heel turn for Kingston and Homicide or a start of a heel turn for Pope. What do you think?
Maybe more so Pope, because like you said, he's definitely looking for something. So I don't know. Like you said, Pope is great either way. Um, but I would imagine this is more so with Pope just because he might feel like he need to whip some guys into shape or whatnot, and then he's very prophetic with his words, but his words might go from motivational to some tough love, if you will, Daddy. That whole deal. So, um, like I say, either way, I'm invested. And as long as he's not eyeing Token Razor.
Well, you can't eye Token and Razor because they're not old enough to be in the NWA because they're babies. Stupid babies. They're not stupid. Whack. All right, they're stupid.
And bringing it back to wrestling again, even with the Turtles, shout out to Kevin Nash for playing Super Shredder. I would imagine his lower portion of his body was not in the shape that it was in when he was. That was an eerie picture he put up. Like I don't know if even if people didn't like Kevin Nash, you gotta respect him.
Yeah, I do. I've always kind of liked him. He's like he's like that movie you don't want to admit you like, but you do. I like watching Kevin Nash matches. I like watching his promos. I think he's got a really good mind for the business. But I think sometimes he kind of lives in this world where he lets what he wants to be and what he knows to be blend into one. It's like watching the Cleveland Browns going, oh, yeah, they were a really good team last year. No, they weren't. But I think sometimes Kevin Nash wants to believe that idea. So I think sometimes he speaks just because of a desire to want to believe it. But I think a lot of times Nash actually does know what he's talking about. But watching, like, looking at his knee and how, like, fucking slanted it was, like, inward, like, ow. And he'd been wrestling like that for years, apparently.
Yeah, man, he looked. I mean, when you go back at it and you look at all those times he really didn't do much, can you blame him?
No.
Like if somebody would have went up and kicked him, I mean, Jesus, he would have went down like the wind. Because he literally looked deformed. I mean, he was deformed,
Mm-hmm.
and the amount of physical therapy and that he had to go through just to maybe realign and then put on muscle to support once again and get back to some type of shape. Like you got to, like I said, nothing else. You got to respect that because that had to take years of just consistent. Like I only imagine the bills that the amount of money that he had to put just to get himself back to some semblance. So all that slow walking and whatnot, I always appreciated. If nothing else, how he always hit that jackknife picture perfect.
Oh, yeah.
So
the jackknife.
It's hard. Yeah.
No, that's it. Just it's so good.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's kind of. I mean, because you basically just having to differentiate, releasing power bomb, but he always had that nice little release to it that I appreciated. So.
Yeah, it was always so much fun to watch. Speaking of fun to watch, Austin Idol has now gotten his doctorate, and I'm not sure which university gave it to him, but I would like to call them and ask them why. He is now a wrestling psychologist. If this doesn't become a gimmick on NWA television, I'm going to be the big mad because this is a great idea, even if he's the worst psychologist ever, because one of the best gimmicks of the last 15 years was Dr. Kevin Nash. His whole shtick with the X Division in 2007 was fantastic, especially the part where he's doing the ink block tests with Loki when he was going by Senshi, and Senshi is Japanese for warrior. So he's going through the ink blocks with Loki, and he's like, all right, Loki, or he's like, okay, Senshi, what do these look like? And he holds up one, and Loki goes, warrior, and then the next one, warrior, next one, warrior, next one, warrior, and then finally Nash slams him down and goes, are you telling me none of these look like Jim Hellwig? For those of you who don't know, Jim Hellwig is the real name of the Ultimate Warrior. So I loved it. It's such a tongue-in-cheek segment. Like that and the paparazzi idol was fantastic. Hey, Jay, you're going to Paducah. Oh, yeah, I'm going to Paducah. Listen, Russo is trash, but he had some really damn good segments back in that year of TNA. So we then get, what are they called? Risky Business?
Yeah, Risky Business.
Is that what it's called?
That might be something. That might be something. Call it going forward. They are. Damn it, what are they called? Strictly Business.
Strictly Business. All right.
Like such an improvement.
Right, Risky Business would have been better. So it's Nick Aldis, it's Thom Latimer, it's Caleb Conley's second cousin once removed, I guess. I don't remember his name.
Oh, man.
It's Camille and apparently Scott Steiner's in this faction now. I feel like I feel like you need to realize when you invite Scott Steiner to anything, whether it's a stable, a wrestling event, or just your backyard picnic or barbecue, you need to understand that Scott Steiner's showing up with a vendetta of pain. And he rolled up. He's got this fucking weird-ass leopard-sprinted fucking vest. He's got an old NWA World's Tag Team title from the Jim Crockett era. And he's cutting the most in just unintelligible promo ever imaginable. And it's Scott Steiner at its peak Steinerness.
I just love how much they were enjoying it. They was like, yes, I don't know what he's saying, but it's great.
Right? He's like, when Ted Turner bought NWA back in '89, bought Jim Crockett in '90. There's Scotty. Not the NWA. The NWA is completely separate. Well, all right. So I loved it. It set up the main event for the night, which was going to be Itty Bitty Thom tag team partner buddy boy. Thom and Scott Steiner versus Brunette, Rock and Roll Express. I think that's Robert Gibson. And then it was Eli Drake and Tim Storm. And that was following this promo was the match. What do you think of the main event match?
That was it Tim Storm or was it no, it was Tim Storm because Morton had to sit back and watch because his shot was on the line. Got you. So
Scott
yeah, but I
Steiner's
dug the
bald, by
match.
the way.
Yeah, I dig, Steiner is just there's nobody else like Scott Steiner, for better or for worse. And I've always appreciated his style because I'm a big fan of the suplex, just the whole suplex family. Um, so that was cool. It's nice to see Drake get behind the rock and roll the way that he does. I think he pairs well with somebody like Storm and Storm's exchange back and forth with the crowd. Basically, the crowd just crapping all over Magnus and him going like, "You can say that, I didn't, but you can say that." Um, Just a quick one about Storm. Those Mama Storm shirts look weird because it just looks like him with a wig.
You're not wrong. But then again, we've never seen Mama Storm. Or at least I've never seen Mama Storm. So that very well might be how
Yeah,
she looks.
yeah. But it's very much how like you would like how they used to do those old cartoon moms where like on Recess, like the mom would just be like a female looking version of the kids.
Yeah, or like an older looking version of the kids.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's just hilarious. But yeah, I dug it. I liked it. And look, man, Aldis is doing a great job of holding down multiple situations because he's poking at every bear on the roster, and at the same time going, man, I sure wish I had some competition. Ooh, I wish I had some competition. Like it's just like he's like ducking people and flipping them off and poking at them all at the same time. It's great. Kind of why this guy is still champion. But yeah, now Morton gets his shot. Against the real world's champion. What do you say? 5 minutes. So we'll see how many Canadian destroyer he pops off on all. That's basically what it'll be.
Poor Petey Williams. One of the best parts about this match that I think really didn't get accentuated was the fact that Scott Steiner and Eli Drake are former tag team champions together. I know that was for a very different company than the NWA, but it would have been nice to have that acknowledgement. I don't like
Completely forgot about that.
How do you
It
forget
was
about
brief.
Eli and Scott?
It was brief, but it was sweet. What they went with just a couple months with that?
Yeah, like 2 months maybe. They won it at the January show, I think, and then I think they lost it at February or March. Speaking of March, Lockdown is coming back. It's coming back in March, but I think it's coming back as like a special, not as a pay-per-view event. So, well, maybe it'll be one of those specials where people actually like have title changes and shit. I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be at the St. Clair College in Toronto, Ontario. So, yeah, it's coming back. I'm excited, and now I get to feel a little bit redeemed because I had been, saying it's coming back for weeks, and then they announced Rebellion. I'm like, oh. And then today they announced Lockdown. I'm like, oh, I'm not an idiot. I know what I'm doing.
I mean, the cool thing about it is in the future. Well, I don't even know if the venues they consistently use now are conducive for that match. I mean, but the concept of lethal lockdown could always be used because it's basically their version of Hell in a Cell.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's their version
So
of War Games.
Yeah, yeah. So that could always be used at a potential height of a feud should this thing continue with Callahan and Tessa, which I would imagine why wouldn't it? But yeah, I mean it's cool that it's coming back. I mean it's like you said, it was one of their better ideas. Um, and then getting back to the NWA, I mean this is again just maybe a little over an hour show most weeks. Uh, Maybe under an hour others. And it's far more interesting than anything we get from the however many, damn near 7 hours it feels like of content we get from WWE
Yeah.
every week.
Yeah.
So, you know, um, R-Truth, try as he might, he can't. Freaking goddamn R-Truth.
What
Although I'm
if
pretty sure Brock got his money's worth that Monday night.
what if they actually have R-Truth and Brock wrestle on Monday and R-Truth wins? I'd be all for that.
I mean, I would sacrifice R-Truth getting mauled and paying just for Brock to take that 24/7 title and do with it exactly what it deserves.
Isn't Mojo the
Title.
champion now?
Oh God, you can kill him too. Sorry, Mojo, to take the L. Just for your attire alone, take that L. But yeah, I mean that title is the reason basically why Ember Moon's on the shelf right now.
Oh, did she get hurt trying to go for that belt?
Yeah, she planted her foot wrong, as you do.
Yeah, as you do. So, is there anything else about the NWA Powerrr or anything else in wrestling that you feel is noteworthy enough to have a conversation on?
No, I mean I think you had already mentioned it, man. RP the what is it, LA Parker?
Yeah, La Parker, yeah.
Um, yeah, La Parker, always sad to hear stuff like that. Very much took me back to the Paraguayo scenario, which you just hate to see it and hear it and stuff like that. But stuff like that can happen. Those are the dangers of this kind of stuff. It's a few inches here, millimeters there, and it can be completely, tragedy. So, RIP.
Yeah, and to clarify, because there's a lot of there's a lot of people who don't know, excuse me, that don't know the difference. This isn't the individual from WCW. The La Parka that you're aware of from WCW is alive and well. He is performing as L.A. Park, however, and he's fine. This La Parka was the one who was recently on Impact Television back in 2019 when they were in Mexico. Different guy, same character, though, if that makes any sense. He apparently went to the floor on a suicide dive and landed wrong. And I don't know if it was a head injury or a neck injury, but it was basically determined that he was in some serious trouble. He couldn't recover, and things took a turn for the worse, and he passed away a few days ago. So, you got to be, aware of what you're doing, and there's a reason why that move is called the suicide dive. You are putting your life in your own hands. So I hope that a lot of wrestlers stop thinking they're invincible. These corner power bombs, these aprons, pile drivers, like it's all very unnecessary. It's a cheap way to get a fleeting pop. And you're not doing anything long term with that move. All you're doing is making sure that fans become accustomed to more and more dangerous and more uncontrollable maneuvers in the future. And that is problematic. I don't like using that word, but when it fits, it fits. So take care of one another in the ring and enjoy the hostilities, as Robin Black would say. So Marks and I will be back on Thursday. We're going to be talking the end of Crisis on Infinite Earths. Plus, I think I'm ready to steer ComicCorp back into a direction of comics. Although I think it's going to be a shorter show going forward. I want to go back to the idea of reviewing actual comics on the show, but not necessarily new releases, but either individual one-offs or retro arcs, if you will. Like 6-7 books. And we have the capacity and means to do that, so it feels like it should be something that should be done. And this way we can, just look back at old books and revel in these, the pre-Bendis and DC era, which really killed my modern interest in the genre. Fucking Bendis. So we'll see what happens with that. I think that's the direction I want to go with the show. It'll go back to being a weekly format if we do that. We'll touch on other things as well, but that will be the bulk of the show. So, yeah, that's all I got for this week. Zach and I are going to be back tomorrow. We're going to talk about any fallout from Impact Wrestling's Hard to Kill. Zach will give his opinions on Hard to Kill. We'll also talk about tonight's or last night's or whatever Tuesday night's edition of Impact as well, so be sure to tune in for that. I think I'm going to start exporting all the shows to YouTube from now on, just in full capacities, while giving the download option there. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. It'll be a thing. Marcus, any final thoughts?
No, that's it for me.
All right. Well, then we're done for the night. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for giving us a chance. Thanks for checking us out. I've been Chad Porto. He's been Marcus Green. You can find Marcus on Twitter at ParadoxKid, ParadoxKid, as well as on his other podcast, The True Penny Show, at TruePennyShow. You can also find me on Twitter at ChadNerdCorp, ChadNerdCorp, and on Instagram at Chad's Photo Hut. You can also find us on the website, which is RealNerdCorp.com, the website that would bring you all these fantastic podcasts that we do. We're also on Twitter at NERDCORP, on Instagram at RealNerdCorp, on Podbean if you want to download any of our past podcasts. If you don't want to sit and watch a YouTube video for an hour, you can just download it and take it on the go. You do so at realnerdcorp.podbean.com or by downloading the Podbean app to your mobile device today and searching Real Nerd Corp on the app. We're also on iTunes at NerdCorp, NERDCORP, and on twitch.tv/WrestlingUnderground and twitch.tv/Comic and GameCorp, youtube.com/The Wrestling Underground, and you're going to have to Google the Comic and GameCorp YouTube account because we don't have enough subscribers yet to have a URL. So hoping to change that. For Mark Screen, I'm Chad Porto. Thanks for tuning in. We're done for the night. Remember to watch more wrestling. And Marcus, why don't you take us home?
Good night, me.